from here. All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Growing Your Small Business with External Financing, a small business workshop hosted by the Business Education Network in conjunction with the Galena Chamber of Commerce and Northwest Illinois Economic Development. My name is Emily, and I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Illinois Economic Development. This is a partnership, but I'll be going through the various financing resources available to small businesses. Before we begin, I'm just going to ask everybody to mute as this is being recorded, but feel free to reach out and share this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at any point throughout the presentation. I'm also happy to answer any questions following the presentation. All right, next slide. So what are we going to cover today? First of all, let's do some introductions. We'll go around the room. I want you to say your name, your type of business, and your years in business. We'll also go into types of financing, picking the financing right for you, seeking financing, and we'll go over some case studies throughout this, so that way you can really see how it might apply to your business or to a friend's business. So first of all, my name is Emily. I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Illinois Economic Development. I've been in this role for a little over a year and a half, and I run a 501c6 organization dedicated to helping businesses and communities find the resources that they need to grow. Angela, how about you?
I am Angela DeVere, the Executive Director for the Galena Area Chamber of Commerce, and I am just going into my second year now with the Chamber. I am just thrilled to be able to be working with so many wonderful people and collaborating with Emily and David with Northwest Illinois Economic Development to be able to offer these workshops to business owners in our area.
And Angela, you run another business or two on the side, right?
I do. I actually started a wedding business a little over 5 years ago when I moved to Galena. And I still do a few of those on the side. Obviously, I'm very busy with my director position. But this year I'm helping to put together 3 weddings. I used to do several a year, but now it's become a little bit more of a hobby business, but it's still a lot of fun to put those together.
Awesome. David. David, you're muted.
Thank you. David Schmidt, I'm the program coordinator here at Northwest Illinois Economic Development. Came on last fall. Prior to that, I worked at the Mangelson Gallery, where I was the assistant gallery director for 4.5 years or so on Main Street in Galena. And prior to that, I was a program manager at IBM over in Dubuque. So my background is a little bit of Main Street, a little bit of corporate.
Ginger or Becky?
Okay, I am muted. I'll go. Ginger Zambrano. I'm a realtor with Rural and Rural Realtors in Galena, and I've been a realtor for 3 years, but just moved to Galena about a year ago and got licensed here in October. My degree is actually in early childhood education, but I only taught for a short time. Most of my prior experience is with nonprofit event planning and fundraising. So I'm really kind of here for myself, but also my clients to see what's available, because I feel like I talk to someone almost every day that, wants to start a business in Galena. It's like so cute. And, I would love to be able to kind of point them in the right direction to all the resources that might be available to them.
That's awesome. Welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, well then I'll go. I mean, we already kind of got to, get to know me a little bit. Becky Eastburn from Clark University, and I am actually here as part of the Career Plus program. So we think of ourselves as truly a startup because it is just me and our program director. And so even though we do have kind of these really incredible supports from the university structure, we really are our own business. And so we are a business within the higher education. And I guess, the nice thing about our program is that we're not only a resource for other businesses, but we're also branching out to helping individuals grow professionally and personally. And so just kind of wanted to get to know everybody. My background, I told you I started in Major League Baseball. and then moved to South Dakota, and I was actually the executive director of a historic opera house and art center as well. So I connect with a couple of you guys on that front as well, and just excited to meet you all.
Awesome. So before we get into it, I'm going to lay out a couple of case studies because that's how I learn best. And I think it's easiest for us to work with others, since that's whom our audience seems to be. When you have an idea, what I do when I work with a client to see what kind of financing they need, I kind of look at their customer profile. So we're going to go over 3 businesses, and then we're going to work through the presentation. And at the end, we're going to ask some questions, and feel free to chime in or ask questions. So the first case study is Anna's Custom Candles. She's been selling her candles at farmers markets and through other shops, but she wants to open a small retailer, much like Ginger's clients. She has little business experience. Maybe she was a stay-at-home mom, or she did some like nonprofit work or some retail, but she has good credit. She and her husband are doing quite well. She's a startup. She wants to have time to raise her kids on the side, and she has a local bank, and she has some money down. The next case study we have is Stockton Family Home Care. They're a small home health agency with about 10 employees based in Stockton, looking to expand their services into Stevenson and Winnebago County, so some larger markets. They do have a physical location, but they are seeking additional help. They're an LLC, and they've been in business for about 13 years. So they've been around for a while. They know what they're doing. They have their feet underneath them. Finally, we have Market Plus. They are a digital technology firm that automates small business marketing at scale. They hope to 10x their market in about 10 years, and they need outside investment to do so. The founders are a team of 4 Google employees who decided to do their own thing using the resources that they developed for themselves over the past decade. Each of these businesses is going to go through a different financing profile. They're going to be able to seek different investment, and they're going to have different funders with different needs. So keep this in mind as we think about the questions and the various types of financing. When we get to the government incentives, I'll touch on it briefly, but I will be going over another handout at the end of the presentation should we have some time. Know that these are Illinois-based, so these are tools that are Illinois-based. However, questions about Iowa, reach out to the Iowa Chamber of Commerce and Greater Dubuque Development Corp. So, what is financing? Merriam-Webster defines financing as money or liquid resources of a government, business, or group or individual. It's also obtaining of funds or capital. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions. What do you think of when you think of financing a small business? Anyone?
Investors.
Investors is a good one. Ginger?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot of times, I guess, at least in my industry, when people talk about financing, they're talking about a loan.
That's another one. Any other types?
Grant support.
Grant support, nonprofits especially. Angela?
Absolutely. I was going to say the same, grants. And sometimes, well, especially in smaller communities, a lot of our new businesses are borrowing money from family members.
These are all different types of capital, and there's even a few more. But depending on the type of business, it may be easier to access different types of capital. And note, just for a quick second, we're focusing on for-profit businesses, whether they be sole proprietors, LLCs, B Corps, etc. Nonprofits have their own separate thing, which I can go into at a later presentation. Northwest Illinois Economic Development is privileged to work with everyone from someone with an idea, to nonprofits, to those who have been in business about 10 years, to the major corporations. So I've seen businesses of all sizes over my past year and a half, and I'm happy to work with any one of them for free. So, just a quick overview about Northwest Illinois Economic Development for those of you who aren't as familiar with us. We are a 501c6 organization, membership-based, supporting businesses and communities in Northwest Illinois, Carroll, Davis counties. We promote economic development by fostering business growth, expanding and relocations are part of it. We also work with entrepreneurs with access to begin and grow their businesses. And we work to create a welcoming business environment for all, building workforce, building political and economic capital. So if you had to go before the county board for whatever reason, we could help you through that. So I asked you about the types of financing. In this presentation, we will go over about 7. So Ginger mentioned banks. These could be mortgages if you're buying a piece of commercial property in downtown Galena. Let's say you want to buy a building. This could also be an equipment loan. Let's say you have an existing restaurant or an existing manufacturer and they need to buy a new bottling system for their jellies or their beer, or they need to upgrade their press. There's also lines of credit. This is basically like a business credit card for a business, typically a smaller loan of up to $20,000 or so, covers some short-term expenses that may pay for themselves, such as inventory, payroll, and other things. There's also private investment, as Angela and David mentioned. This can be money from friends and family or connections. This often comes from more risky investments, whether it be a restaurant, which has a 97% failure rate in the first 5 years. It can be for tech startups, which maybe 1 in 10 go on to scale. Private investment can also include Shark Tank, where people pitch in front of a bunch of like billionaire investors. It can also be venture capital, especially in the tech sector and tech adjacent sectors. There are also government programs. These can include local and state tax incentives, for example, tax credits for employee retention or apprenticeships. This can also include reimbursements through the tax increment financing program, where the city will reimburse you partially for improvements you make on your property. Galena doesn't have this, but places like Dubuque, East Dubuque, Stockton, Savannah, all have TIF districts for private investment. These are usually place-based, so you must be located within a certain geographic location. It's dependent upon the city or county that you're in. This can also include the enterprise zone program. In Illinois especially, there is a but-for clause. But for this government help, you wouldn't expand here. So it's really important that when you're working with government programs, that you work with someone who's more experienced with this so that we can walk you through the process so you don't accidentally break a rule and lose financing. Finally, on this slide, there's crowdfunding. Let's say you have a really good coffee shop you want to launch. I think Miss Kitty did that when she was helping her son launch the juicery, where you get a bunch of people from around the area or around the world, if you're using Kickstarter, help you raise money to launch a product or launch a service. Of these types of financing, banks need to be paid back, usually with an interest rate. The term varies, but typical interest rates I've seen in the past 4 or 5 years has been around 4 to 5%, a little bit larger interest rate if it's something else. Private investment varies for how you have to pay it back. If it's friends and family, you may just have to pay back a loan with no interest. If you're going for professional private investors, they'll typically want to take a cut of your company, such as an ownership stake of 5, 10%, depending on who the thing is. Government programs are often grants or tax credits that don't have to be paid back, but they do come with a lot of conditions, such as you must invest or you must stick around for 10 years. Otherwise, they can recapture the money. Finally, there are some alternate financing sources. The Gens Memorial Investment Fund is something that Northwest Illinois Economic Development set up in conjunction with Illinois Bank and Trust. It's gap financing in terms of a grant for small businesses, including farming. It can be used for capital purchases, and we have 3 awards per year with potential to expand in the future. This is a grant where we work with your existing bank to make a project work. There are also pitch competitions and competitive grants. Pitch competitions do not need to be paid back. Competitive grants do not need to be paid back, typically, if you receive an award. However, these are competitive. If you're entering a pitch competition or trying to receive a grant, they do typically require a product or service that meets a specific need, and you have to say why they should invest in you versus someone else, or what you're going to give them in return. You have to show a clear community benefit to yourself or the business. And while some are more lax than others, these are both open to startups and existing businesses, but these are few and far between. Grants in business are really hard to get. You're going to have more luck with a grant if you're a nonprofit, kind of like Becky, if you're tied to a university, or if you're engaging in some nonprofit work. most grants do require a 501c3 designation, which makes it really hard. And pitch competitions are usually targeted around a specific purpose, whether it be an event like a startup weekend, whether it be a small seed money competition like what Northwest Illinois Economic Development hosts every year, or whether it's something held through the Small Business Development Center. It's usually innovation focused. Finally, there's some gap financing. This financing is usually in the form of loans, and it fills the gap between the down payment that you have and the bank award. For example, let's say you need $100,000 to buy a piece of property. You have $10,000 in the bank that you can put as your down payment. The bank will give you $80,000 and you need $10,000 to fill that gap. This loan can come from a variety of sources, including but not limited to the Joe Davis County Revolving Loan Fund, Small Business Administration funding, especially for riskier small businesses in restaurants, retail, for women-owned. It can also come from USDA loans, where I work with Joe Carroll Energy and Dairyland, and other sources. These are reachable either by talking to your bank. For example, US Bank does automatically refer people to SBA if they think you're a decent credit, but they can't fill this, or by talking to your local economic developer or your Chamber of Commerce, because there are often very localized programs like the Joe Davis County Revolving Loan Fund, or like USDA and others that your banks may not know about simply because there's so many different forms out there. Gap financing typically does require you to work with a bank though. And the bank financing and private investment are the two most common ways to finance a business, especially in this area. I work with all of these businesses. I work with all of you to see what works best. And just because you may have an idea, you do still want to talk to someone to see what your options are, just because things are constantly changing. All right, before I go forward, what questions do you have on these two slides? Yeah, like this is a lot of information, which is why you will be receiving a recording of this and of the slides in the future. And I'm always here to chat with folks about these. Finally, just because this is a new program in Joe Davis County, there is a commercial property assessed for clean energy. Basically, the state wants us to finance renewable energy and energy efficiency products through financing attached to the property deed, so like attached to the building itself, and paid with each tax bill. These are bonds through the Illinois Energy Conservation Authority for up to 100% of project costs for new and existing buildings with potential projects, including heating and ventilation, roofs, lighting, installation, solar panels, and more. The assessment period usually matches the useful life of the improvement. And for the bankers who are watching this, CPACE does require permission from the lender, just because they do take second place, but it is also very important. This program did pass the Joe Davis County Board earlier this month, and the Finance, Tax, and Budget Committee is in the process of setting up the new program. Just want to throw this out there, especially since we do have Ginger, a realtor, on the call, that this program is coming through, and I'll be happy to keep you updated, because I know you work with people who often need to update their property just a little bit, because no building is ever quite the way you want it.
Can we ask questions, or do you want to?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wondered, so for that one, is that like a situation where somebody would, if they were looking to buy a property, they would actually get this in place as before they close on that, so they would get approval similar to how they would do their loan? It'd be a second.
I am not sure. Let me look that up to you. Let's have a conversation about this.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't heard of this, so I mean, I think that it's something I could.
No, I'm really excited about this program. I know Angela did speak in favor of it at the February meeting, so February or January. So we're still working out the details, but I'd be happy to pass it along, and if nothing else, see what Will County and Winnebago County are doing with this too.
Yeah, anything would be helpful. Thanks.
Of course, I'm happy to answer questions like this. So the next thing to think about as you finance your small business or your expansion is questions to help you figure out what's right for you. These are questions that I, as your economic developer, would ask you. These are questions the Small Business Development Center will likely ask you if they were the ones helping you through this. And there is a free Small Business Development Center in every state, in every community. Becky, yours would be at the greater Dubuque offices in that same complex. So they want to know what type of business you have. Restaurants and startups are risky. They have trouble getting traditional bank capital, especially without a down payment. If you're a startup business, you're going to have some additional financing challenges. While if you're a more established business, let's say you have 5 years of tax returns, you're going to have an easier time getting financing. Certain banks work better with riskier businesses. Certain banks prefer a more sure thing. And certain banks want people from a specific area more so. This will help you determine which bank will be the best and which tools will be the best for you. Next, think about your short-term goal. Do you want a new equipment or a new building? That might be a traditional loan, or depending on your size, if you're a manufacturer, that might involve tax incentives. If you're in Elizabeth, if you're in other places, you might be able to get tax incentives. You need new employees, there might be an apprenticeship tax credit, there might be an employee retention tax credit or employee upskills. Do you want to increase production, whether it be through a startup or otherwise? That's also going to open up a different world of financing and incentives, which is really, really cool to work with. Next question, are you scalable? Do you want to be everywhere? Do you think you have the potential to be everywhere for not a lot of cost? Or do you need significant investment to be everywhere? Or, and there's nothing wrong with this, do you want to stay in Main Street or maybe open up a second Main Street location, either on downtown Galena, downtown Elizabeth, or somewhere outside the region entirely? These influence the type of financing that your bank, that your economic developer, and others can recommend. Also, timeline. Banks can work quickly. Economic developers with the Gens Memorial Investment Fund, or if you're going for the Joe Davis County Revolving Loan Fund, or the USDA funds through Joe Carroll, that's going to take some more time. If you know that you need to move right now, a line of credit might be good, especially for short-term inventory. Next, who do you know? Who's in your network? Are you working with an existing bank for your business? That would be my first recommendation to see what options they have as you work on your expanding. Do you know people in your family or in your social circles or a friend of a friend who might have some money to invest in your business? That's also an option that I highly recommend, especially if you're having trouble getting bank financing or you want to start up. Friends and family and personal money is one of the most common ways to start a business or to expand a business. Finally, I want you to think about what kind of down payment do you have? What are you already investing? What money do you have on hand? The size of your down payment on a bank loan or the size of the capital that you can invest will impact your interest rates, the amount you're willing to get, and the amount that other programs, whether it be USDA or others, are able to give you. These are questions I like to see in a business plan. These are the questions I want to know so that way I can recommend you the best option for your business. So now that you've asked yourself all these questions, what are the next steps? First of all, I like to know who your team is. And these are people that everyone should kind of have in their back pocket. We want you to have a bank. I can recommend banks. I can tell you who's probably going to be the best fit for you, but I always want to make sure that you're comfortable with the person you're working with. You should also have a lawyer because whether it be signing contracts, setting up real estate, legalese, you want to have someone on hand that you can call that you trust because you never know what's going to happen in business, whether it be HR, workman's comp, just have someone on hand. You also should have an accountant. There's lots of tax changes lately. There's lots of loopholes, and there's also things you may benefit from. And while I'm aware of some of these, they're the ones who can tell you what's right for your business and make sure your books are on track. Because good bookkeeping is key to any expansion. It's going to keep you out of trouble with IRS. And many programs like my own, like others, do require a year of tax returns, and you want to make sure you're doing things right. Next, make your plan. Do you have a business plan or a business model canvas or some variation? Know how much money you're asking for, know how much money you have down, and know who you're asking. Northwest Illinois Economic Development and your local Small Business Development Center are two free resources that can help you develop these. But if your bank can also help, you may have other friends and family who are experienced business owners who can also help. Finally, make the asks. I'm here to help. You might have a grandfather who used to be a banker who can help. But this is the fun part. All right, before we go on and review the case studies, what other questions do you all have about this? Cool. So going back to the case studies, and if you need me to go back to the slide or two, feel free to ask. We have Anna. We have the retailer who, or the person who wants to be a retailer. This seems like one of Ginger's clients that she mentioned. If Anna has an existing relationship with a bank, let's say Dupaco, who else does she need on her team if she's just been selling through other retailers? Anyone?
Excuse me. She needs a lot of family support. She needs, let's say if she's on Main Street, Galena, for instance, it would be fantastic for her to network with other business owners, to ask them where, you know, they're receiving some of their financing from, and to be introduced to groups like Business Education Network, and to meet people like you with Northwest Illinois Economic Development, to just further their whole scope of understanding on where these types of financing are available. Because I do feel that we have quite a few business owners in our area who really are excited to start a business. They want to start a business, but they don't know where to start, what their first steps are. So just my advice to her as a question there would just be to start asking, start networking more, and finding out which pieces and people in the community to connect to get that financing.
Ginger, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I guess I don't remember if she already has a location, but
She has a
I guess
bank, but she doesn't have a location yet. Because I get calls like that.
Okay.
I'm sure you do too. I get calls like that. I'm sure you do too.
Yeah. You said she has a what, but she doesn't have a location?
She has a bank. Let's say she's working with Dupaco, for example.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess if she, probably the first place which she would find if she started connecting would be, you know, branding and marketing, I guess, making sure that she's coming out right and knowing who her clients are, maybe looking and seeing what other people are doing well. And then ultimately she needs a realtor on her team to find her location, wherever that's going to be. But probably some work before she just shoot, you know, I mean, I think you should be intentional about the location. So probably the marketing and branding would be important too.
That's really important. And what types of financing do you think she's going to need? What types of financing do you think I would recommend to her, or what types of financing do you think she's most likely to get? Assuming that she has a few sales already, but she's not really run a business outside of those sales. But she has good credit. We did note that.
I mean, I only can think of just through Dupaco, probably like some sort of personal loan, or because I don't even know if they would do a business loan if there wasn't.
They do a business loan.
They do? Okay. Yeah. Even if there's not like a history of.
She has a few things, so she might have a few returns, but they would do a business loan, especially if she had it set up as a business. The other thing I would look at is friends and family too. And maybe USDA revolving loan fund or the Joe Davis County revolving loan fund too, to fill in a gap if she needs like $10,000 gap financing.
Emily, can you talk a little bit about the banks in the area that do the microloans? You know what that term means? This might be something that would allow this person to, you know, get their feet on the ground.
I do not recall those at the moment, but I'd be happy to talk with her and sit down with her to talk through these options if this was an actual client. There are some that offer smaller loans in terms of $5,000 to $10,000. It really depends, but if we're assuming she's moving into Main Street, she might need something just a little bit bigger. But that would be the way to do it. Don't also forget friends and family. If they can give her some money for a down payment, that also helps. And building on that network as well. The other thing that I would mention is I would get involved with the Downtown Business Association if she has one, especially if she's in Galena. That's a great way to network with other business owners. And make sure she's getting in touch with utilities. That's more the realtor side of things. So next, we have Stockton Family Home Care. This is a home health business that's been around for about 13 years. They have about 10 employees. They're looking to expand their services at another location into other counties. But knowing that they've been around for 13 years, they obviously have a relationship with a bank and such. They probably have a realtor and their team built. What types of financing do you think Stockton Family home care would be likely to seek, or they would be eligible for to seek. And we can go
Are they a
back.
nonprofit? I don't remember if they were.
They're not a nonprofit. All of these
Oh, okay.
are
Okay.
all of these are for-profit businesses.
I
I
think
would
that'd
say,
be more along the
go ahead.
lines of the government programs, given their size and stability.
Perhaps they would definitely be eligible for TIF. They were moved to Freeport or Rockford. They might be able, if they did an apprenticeship, they would definitely be eligible for those kinds of tax credits as well. What else, Angela?
I was going to say, because they've been in business for 13 years, they're probably looking at doing some expanding. So some more private investors who might want to help them grow, along with the conversation with our local banks as well.
I would also say that because they're in healthcare, they might be eligible for some healthcare specific programs. So there might be grants available for that, because rural healthcare is a big issue, and potentially gap financing as well, because they are a high need. They are something that wants to expand with a proven track record. Gens Memorial Investment Fund might be good. And then definitely CPACE, because Winnebago has for sure CPACE and they want to keep their costs as low as possible. Finally, just because I like throwing in tech and startups, we have Market Plus, a marketing tech program, software program. There's a team of 4. They're Google employees. They really want to scale their business in the next 10 years. What types of financing do you think these 4 individuals would pursue? And we can go back to a couple of the other slides. Because just while we don't work with a lot of these clients one-on-one yet, we might have that occasional client like this Market Plus.
You know, I just say, if I remember, they were all Google employees at one point. I mean, so I think that if they were to participate in some of those like competitions and things, that like their background would be really interesting to me, and like have like a lot of like trust that they know what they're talking about, that they could make it happen and potentially win some funds that way.
That's true. I think if they're going for pitch competitions, they'd also go for venture capital and some private investment. If they were doing a nonprofit marketing tech firm, they could go for crowdfunding, because they do have a non-traditional model. Banks, probably not. They don't seem to have a high overhead. And if you're 4 Google employees working on a startup, you can literally work from a coffee shop or your basement if you want to. Government programs, not as much. I think this would be the type of candidate that would go for the pitch competitions, the competitive grants, or the venture capital, as opposed to other things, because they can work from anywhere. They don't have a high overhead. They can scale really, really easily.
I think too, especially in our area, people forget about places like the Freeport Community Foundation or Greater Dubuque, where there are some money that's available for something specific. Let's say you're a new startup, you have some crowdfunding, but you want to do something like a local version of Tom's Shoes, where you buy 1 pair of shoes and one is given away to a family that needs. Or with the pandemic, you have maybe some software that's usable for students, and so many people have been homeschooled, or a hybrid of homeschooling of some kind, and somebody purchases it and another family is given something like that for free because they need it, or they live somewhere rural where there's not good Wi-Fi. So those kinds of things, I think those types of organizations are fantastic for.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, each business has its own network. Each person has their own network. Economic developers and chambers of commerce like Angela are a great way to tie into your existing networks and find the hidden things. Like, I didn't even think about the community foundation. That's what happens when you have a group of people around you and a group of people supporting you. You can say, hey, Angela, who do you know that might help with this? Hey, Ginger, who do you know? Do you know of anyone who likes to invest in early stage businesses but might not be open about it? Like John Cook invested in a bunch of different things, and he started Prairie Rich. and he owns a couple of properties in Galena. Networks are key, and the best way, if you don't have that network, is to get involved with your Chamber of Commerce and your economic development agency, because we're the ones who are paid to know the people. And we have a lot of different resources. And because of the different experiences that we've had, we can really match you with the people who would best fit your needs. So that's what I have for you. What specific questions, what specific things do you have? I can definitely pull up the government financing tools, which is an overview of COVID tools, as well as some of the other traditional incentives and such. But if you have another case study, another what if question, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions. Otherwise, I'm really happy to meet with people one-on-one to discuss their individual situations. I hope you've been given some good takeaways. I didn't go into a lot of specifics just because each case is different. Each bank has their own tools, but I'm really happy to work with folks going forward. Ginger, if you have people telling you they want to start a business in Galena, feel free to have them come to my office. I do offer free help, as does Angela, because we are willing to talk to people about what's next and what options are out there. We can get them.
Yeah, that was my question. It's sort of where's the best place to direct them to start, because it sounds like just give you a call or shoot you an email. Okay.
Yeah, send me an email CCing them on it. I would be happy.
Even if they're just sort of in the idea stages, like trying to see if it's even okay.
I provide market. I can do market research. Today I have pulled data for the Conservation Foundation as they update their strategic plan. I'm the one who's going to these meetings advocating for these new programs. I have the GENS fund that's open for folks who are trying to start or expand, having a problem with utility, not to call you out, Mike, but they need to get broadband or something for their business. I can refer them to those people.
Yeah.
Or make sure that things are set up properly.
We have discussed, we would like to put a very specific workshop together for those types of people who are coming, because we get this question very often. I love Galena, I love Joe Daviess County, I want to start a business here, where do we start? And so we do want to put a workshop together for that specific reason. But kind of how it's been going is I'll get the question and I usually am referring them to Emily so they can talk to her about where they can find capital and just get a basic idea of where to start. And then we talk to them about joining organizations like, of course, the Chamber of Commerce, Galena Downtown Business Association, so they can begin networking and meeting some other business owners. And then coming back to the Business Education Network, which is the collaboration between Emily's organization and the Galena Chamber of Commerce, for things like workshops on how can I market my new business for free. It's people who have a really small budget, and we tell them about things like, oh, this is how you start a Google business page, or refer them to other organizations that help them with building their social media and that kind of thing. But we're absolutely always here to help and answer any questions. But absolutely, just like Emily said, if you get those questions, referring them to Emily for just figuring out the first steps is a great way to go.
Yeah, the other thing is we can help if people ever having trouble with workforce or need a workforce or upskilling people. I can refer them to Business Employment Skills Team or Highland Community College Resources or Clark at this point, because I think that's a really cool program that you're starting, Becky, and I'd love to hear more about it. If they want to market, I also often refer people to Rose's organization, the Greater Galena Marketing, because they do some really good features, especially for Galena experiences, where I've had 2 different people say it's really worked for them, and one person say already in the past month that she wants to get on it. She's a pick your own berry farm or whatever. It really depends on the industry, but I do work with people whether they want to start a dog groomers, whether they want to start a manufacturing, whether they want to grow their production company. I have a couple of people like that I'm talking to. If they're buying an existing business, I'm helping the folks who are buying the Scales Mound grocery store. We're really here to help, and we're really here to find not only the options that they think they want, but the options they didn't even think to ask for as well. Because there's so much out there, it's a full-time job just trying to keep up with it. And that's not the job of the business. That's our job. And we're even in the room. Let's say you're not comfortable talking to a bank or to a utility because maybe you're a blue collar guy who's just worked in the kitchen his entire life. And you're like, I don't know where to start with this. I don't speak legalese. I don't speak banking. I don't speak utilities. I work with my hands. And we're happy to sit on the conversations too and make sure that your questions are answered and that it's explained in normal people terms, like taking financing and say banks, private people, people you know, and others. Thank you all for joining us this morning. If you do have questions, feel free to reach out. I would be happy to chat. My phone number is on the screen, my email. I'll be sending you the slides and the video as soon as it's up on the Northwest Illinois Economic Development YouTube channel. Happy to take any questions, and feel free to share this with whomever you think may be interested, whether or not they were able to make the call today.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was really great. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna stop recording.